I'm Andrew Barth Feldman, and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, it's Michael Urie, and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, this is Leslie Margarita, and you are listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, guys, this is Tommy Bracco, and you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Welcome to this very special Broadway Podcast Network live event. I'm Dori Berenstein, host of Deep Dive Broadway, and tonight we celebrate Ratatouille the musical. In fall 2020, Broadway fans came together on Tick-Tock in an unprecedented collaboration to create a new musical based on the beloved Disney film Ratatouille. In less than 5 weeks, a scrumptious crowdsourced musical was given the full Broadway treatment and premiered on New Year's Day in a special benefit for the Actors Fund. So, it's only appropriate that tonight we continue to honor the extraordinary work of the Actors Fund as we celebrate the team behind Ratatouille. Since March 2020, the Actors Fund has distributed over $18 million in emergency financial assistance to over 15,000 performing arts and entertainment workers in need due to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can learn more about the tremendous work of the Actors Fund, and you can support their heroic efforts by going to actorsfund.org. And now, Ratatouille, the musical. Let's dive in. Joining us from the Ratatouille team, please welcome producer Greg Noble, executive producers and book writers Michael Breslin and Patrick Foley, music supervisor, arranger, orchestrator, and songwriter for one of the original Tick-Tock songs, Daniel Mertzliff, and choreographer Eleanor Scott, and finally, Alfredo Linguini himself, Andrew Barth Feldman. You guys have turned theater upside down and backwards, and it's all for the better. And I really am seriously in awe. I recently produced a musical that took 8 years. 8 years, and that's not unusual. It took 8 years to get to Broadway, and what did it take you guys? 2.5 months? I mean, it's crazy, but that's not all. You really lowered the barriers to entry. You democratized theatrical creation. You inspired the next generation of theater creators. You attracted over 350,000 viewers to New Year's Day virtual celebration. And you raised $2 million for the Actors Fund. I mean, my head is spinning. It's just bravo. And so I'm really, really thrilled to celebrate you all and your Ratatouille collaborators. And it seems right to just go back a very long time to October. Daniel, I think you heard your fellow TikTokers, Emily Jacobson's ode to Remy, and you heard it and it just inspired you to orchestrate it. What happened?
Yeah, so a friend of mine actually tagged me in Emily's in the comments on Emily's video and said, "Hey, is this the next grocery store musical?" Which was the grocery store musical was a video that my first like viral musical video that was based on New York Summer by Louisa Melcher like a couple months back, and I was like, "Oh, like yeah, this is really funny," and it just screams, you know, big Broadway Disney Act 2 finale. I mean, what a better way to end a show than with "May the world remember your name." Like that's totally like an Alan Menken ending of a show. So I was like, okay, let's go back to those scores. We'll pull from like the Beauty and the Beasts, the Little Mermaid, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and just give it like that full choir, that full big orchestra. So like threw it together in like maybe an hour and then sent it to my best friend, Corey Jasker, who's like all of the female voices. So there's like 15 of her, like 15 of me as the choir. And then posted it and thought it would be, you know, a funny little video that people might enjoy. But I didn't realize that that would like launch this Ratatouille musical movement. Never. And I definitely didn't think I would then be like actually writing out a version of it for like these brilliant Broadway folk to sing with a full orchestra. That was not what I was imagining in middle of October.
You were just doing it for fun.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah. It's also like, I think it's funny. Like all of my TikTok content is really niche. And like, I thought it was hilarious and was like, maybe someone will find it funny. and people did, which I'm very happy. But yeah, at the end of the day, like I just thought it was funny and I enjoy making it, which is why I do a lot of that content.
So at the same time, Andrew, you're hearing about this whole Ratatouille thing, and you watch, I guess, or hear Nathan Fossbinder's song, which was for Linguini, right? And you decide to just record it for
Kind of.
TikTok.
So I'm not huge on TikTok. Or I wasn't then. I'm bigger on it now, and I'm falling in love. But like back then, I really wasn't. But yeah, my friend Nathan Fossbinder, who has been a friend of mine for a while, because I was so in love with his Dear Evan Oh No video on YouTube, which is the video of it's Ben Platt singing, but he's like, on the outside always look, and he's like sounds bad and it's hilarious. I love that video, so we became friends a couple of years ago, and he texted me, if I did write a song for Ratatouille, would you sing it? And I was like, yeah, I would do that. And I had no idea it would, that essentially doing that would like cement my place in this beautiful history of this crazy thing. It's very funny that if I hadn't done that TikTok, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about this. Like, that's very, very hilarious.
Well, I don't know. I have a feeling somehow Alfredo Linguini would have landed in your lap somehow. I really think so. But so this is happening. Daniel's busy putting this together. Andrew's recording. Everybody's starting to talk about Ratatouille everywhere. I'm hearing about it. And Greg, you're hearing about it. You're hearing about it, but then you do something about it. And, when I heard it was you that was behind this, it didn't surprise me at all, because you just are such a maverick, and your company is really dedicated to dismantling barriers and creating accessible theater. So it made total sense to me that you were behind this. But, we all heard about, many people heard about it, but you didn't about it. So what was that moment where you were like, oh, this has to happen. I've got to bring this to life somehow. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, there was sort of a bunch of points around watching it, and like literally hundreds of millions of other people had been watching it sort of evolve and grow into this thing. And there became a point in time where, like all of us in the live theaters business, our whole life had been like rescheduling schedule shows that might happen in 22 or 23, and we're talking about accessibility when we come back, and pipeline diversity, and how we find new talent. And meanwhile, over here, like, the kids have made a musical. Do you know what I mean? And I was like, but it's actually happening. And we, like the worst thing that we could do is, at the time that I was sort of engaging with it, there were 250 million people engaging with the trend of Ratatouille musical. And I called on Thanksgiving night, Tom Schumacher, or Thanksgiving Eve night, and said, it is our responsibility as stewards of this business, and frankly, you as, in charge of all things Disney, that we acknowledge that this has happened, right? I think the worst thing that could happen is like this moment goes and comes and goes, and we as a business haven't said, like, we see you. And like, you as creators are welcome here, and you as future audience members are welcome here. And like, you are vital and needed, and this work is needed. And also the work is good. Like, the work was very good that was happening, which is sort of the main driver. And so when I had this phone call with Tom, who was so receptive to the idea of doing something specifically for the Actors Fund to sort of galvanize this energy, and I had, I'm huge fans of Patrick and Michael, who had just created Circle Jerk, which like literally every culture paper was talking about at the moment, and they had like really harnessed the energy of like internet meets live meets like surprising, engaging, like wild downtown but digital theater. And I was like, on this call with Tom, I was like, it has to be Patrick and Michael who steward a creative idea around what this might look like. And he blessed all of that on Thanksgiving Eve night.
Yeah. So then you call, he blessed it, but he said, okay, you have it for one night to benefit the Actors Fund, and it's January 1st, which was hardly more than a month later.
31 days.
So
yeah.
You call Michael and Patrick. Okay, so we have a month basically, and we're going to create a musical. Did you guys think about hanging up on him? I mean, was it was it an
Well,
immediate
he
yes?
texted
Or was it like, you're
us.
crazy?
No, well, so Greg texted us and he was like, have you heard about this thing? And of course, in research for Circle Jerk, because it's so much about TikTok, we had come across it. But it was, I don't know, midnight on the night before Thanksgiving. So we were texting, but eventually I fell asleep. And when I woke up the next day, like Michael and Greg had been texting all night with these rat emojis. I think, Michael was a few glasses of Chardonnay deep. And in the morning, Greg was like, so you guys are game. Can I get a treatment by the end of the week? And we were like, okay. And then it sort of took off from there. But there was so much work already done that it was like really quite pleasurable.
And then you all went to Daniel and said, all right, we have a month. Can you take 12 songs or write them all? Can you write the show's I Want song? Remember My Name. Can you do all of this in 1 month? And you said, sure.
We can do it. Of course. And it's funny because it also feels like just all of my skills like lining up. Like, one, I'm obsessed with TikTok. So I already know the songs that we're going to use. Great. We love that. And like, I put my list together, chatted with Michael and Patrick and Greg and Carly, and we were like, great. So we all have the exact same list. Love this for us. So then I started to do the math where, because we got Macy Schmidt, our brilliant orchestrator, the next day, along with Emily Marshall, who's our music coordinator with Macy. And we said, okay, so if we're going to do this, that means we have to do one song a day for the next 13 days, because then we're in a studio. And then we did it. But it really, it was absurd. And there was just no looking back, where it was like, I would do it. I'd immediately send it to Macy and she would orchestrate it. It would go to the copyists and then it was done. And it was just wild because it was, I knew that I had to write the I Want song. I didn't know what it was yet. But I knew that I had to like come up with a motif because I wanted it to be in lots of the other songs. So like, on the second day of arranging, I like wrote the idea, the opening piano bit for Remember My Name. And it was like, just started putting it in all the other songs and underscoring. Like, it opens Andrew's song on the harp. It's like that, but I wrote that before I wrote Remember My Name. So it's like, I hope it works when I actually get to writing the song. But yeah, it was an absurd pace. But it sort of felt like we like had returned home. Like, it just felt normal again, which was really, really nice. To be like constantly texting Macy and Emily. and
Greg, I don't know about you, but as a producer, I'm sitting here thinking, this changes everything. I sit around for a year, literally waiting for a song to be written or to have a rough draft of Act One, and it takes years. This changes everything. And how you put it together. But I just cannot impress everyone enough that what you did to put this team together to move this forward in such a brief amount of time, and then casting and Eleanor, you came on board at that time. And you're not only having to choreograph for in a virtual space, so it's not a live theatrical event, but you're creating choreography for a rat and backup rats. And did you have to study rat videos? How did you develop your language for the choreography?
I didn't have to study rat videos, but I did. I was watching a lot of rats fighting each other. They're very expressive, I'll tell you that. They're very expressive, very intelligent. But yeah, it was a very interesting space. I was the assistant choreographer for Cats revival on Broadway. So I had the experience of taking animalistic movement and putting them on human bodies. So I was able to take a little bit of what I learned there to create this movement. And the thing that was, very important to me was to create movement that not only was impressive, but also like nodded to the fact that TikTok dances are such a big part of that platform, which is typically from waist up that you can, 9x16. And I wanted to create movement that would be impressive, but then also you could like teach it to your, your grandpa and your mom one day and like learn all of these, Tick-Tock dances, but ratify them? Oh Lord, that was cheesy. Sounded better in my head, but
and to Michael and Patrick and Greg, you are with Eleanor doing what she's doing, and Daniel creating this incredible score. You're having to put all these pieces together, and you get Lucy involved and others involved, but trying to figure out how to put it all together is just a mad undertaking in that short of time, and figuring out how to capture, record it, and bringing on the Broadway Sinfonetta, which is such a brilliant move. Can you talk about your process in wrangling the whole thing?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, Michael, please.
Patrick and I had worked with this amazing projection designer, David Bengali, on Circle Jerk. He's a fabulous designer and a great technician as well. So we knew that we had to work with him on this project. He works quickly, efficiently, and beautifully. So he was one of our first calls, and collaborating with Lucy in sort of storyboarding, the whole imagistic world of what this, video would look like was also a really exciting process.
It was
Absolutely.
it was really strange because we were in this deeply uncomfortable position, sort of specifically on the producing team, of not having time. And as everybody on this call knows, I had like apology calls with all the creative team members after this to be like, this is not how it usually goes. But nobody had worked together before. And nobody had an opportunity to, well, that in our normal processes, everyone has time to get to know each other, and in lovely situations go away for a weekend and work and meet and sort of, speed date with a couple of collaborators and see who's going to be the right fit. But we didn't have time for that. And so we had to just bring people to the table who we would hope would be good collaborators. And this story could have ended much differently if it didn't go that way. But fortunately, everybody, would meet for the first time. Eleanor, you met everybody like at once on one call, and it was a working meeting, and it was time to go. And, Lucy was at the time reopening Six when she met Michael and Patrick for the first time, although they had been like digital fans of each other. So we sort of knew that. And so it was just like such a weird thing to find collaboration digitally first, but also with collaborators who you hadn't had an underlying working relationship with. It sort of upended the entire, what we know to be sort of the onboarding of collaborators, in fortunately a way that ended lovely for us, but was tricky waters for sure.
Absolutely. And then casting, obviously, who else on the planet could bring a Linguini to life? But you brought in such an amazing team of people that did the challenge of capturing performance for a virtual event, to have them really feel like they're interacting with each other, to feel like, Andrew, that that you had someone in your hat. How did all of that? That takes a lot of careful choreography, really, and planning to both in the writing and in the execution to have that incredible interaction, which you feel. It's so impressive. How were you able to put that together with and incorporating Daniel's music and orchestration and everything into a very fluid, beautiful piece?
Well, I think Andrew should answer that, but before he does, I just want to give a shout out to Taylor Williams, who is like goddess from on high. We would be in these email chains, literally sending her dreams, and she would, in under 24 hours, make them realities. So just shout out to Taylor.
I was gonna give a shout out to Lucy actually, because what she did and really so much was so like not disconnected, but just like everyone was very much had to do their own thing. So like but with Lucy, the way she interacted with us, we had, you know, little meetings with her to go through everything, but she sent us like these very specific a shot list basically of do this for these lines from this point. And like if it was a big scene with a lot of people, like the scene toward the beginning when we're in the kitchen and it's me and Titus and Mary Testa and Ashley Park, there was like a track. Who recorded the tracks? Was it one of you, Michael and Patrick? Or like there were these tracks of
It was me.
it was amazing. These tracks of like everyone else's lines. And so I would just speak when, and that's how this all worked. And then sometimes it just worked miraculously. But in terms of what I was doing, that stuff was all laid out for me. In terms of like their Titus Burgess is in my hat and things like that. I had found this like stuffed Remy thing from when I got in like 2007 when like the movie came out in Disney, and I don't remember getting it, but my aunt was like, you really like yelled at us that you wanted it, and we were pretty upset, but we had to give it to you. And so like I have this like animatronic Remy that whenever I was like I don't feel the stakes, I would just like put him down next to the camera and do the scene to him to just feel like a cartoon person, I think. Yeah, it's all that's the thing. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no idea what Titus was doing, and obviously in a normal setting, my performance would so hinge on what Titus was doing. So I just kind of made the decision to do what the movie cartoon character did and let Titus be Titus. And so it was really it was fun. I mean, it was just so much fun to stand there and obsess over doing each thing like again and again and again, which was honestly like a luxury to get to do it a billion times until I felt like it was good, because I am crazy. So that was it was just lovely. It was a lovely like day of recording. I did it all in like one evening.
Well, clearly, you know, what you always strive for in producing a musical, everyone to be on the same page. And it sure sounds like somehow you were all on the same page and you were all working together seamlessly. Awesome producing. Daniel, when you were creating and putting this score together, you were choosing from how many songs had been created on TikTok at that point?
I mean, I don't think any of us could actually count. But we really went to like the most viewed videos, the ones that were featured in all the articles, the most like in that hashtag. And then also just looked at beats that we didn't have them for, knowing, I actually think I saw that. Like there was one that I hadn't seen that Michael and Patrick both had seen. I just said Matrick. That's your new nickname now.
Thank you.
That they brought in, and I was like, oh yeah, this is brilliant. And then once we had all those, you know, luckily we worked with a brilliant copyist named Jesse Rosso, who just like had written, at least notated a lot of those like minute things. And then it was just like trying to craft a score from all of these very random, very different things, and trying to like change a lot of the piano stuff to like make it cohesive in some way, was really difficult but really fun. And like I've always admired Tom Kitt, and it's like I can finally do like what Tom Kitt does, which is really exciting. But it was, you know, it was a challenge also, because like, you know, talk about being on the same page is like Michael, Patrick, and I had like sort of discussed moments of dialogue, and like when I was arranging, I just wrote underscore and was like, I bet you this is how long this dialogue will be, I hope. and you know, like there was no time. There was like no time to workshop that. And like there's one of my favorite ones is Andrew's song has a bunch of timed out dialogue, and it just lined up so well. And it gets me every time when he was like, you'll always be there looking over me. And I was like, oh, you will be always there looking over you. And it just timed out so perfectly. So, you know, it was that way though. Like there was just no time, and we all were sort of like trusting each other to make smart decisions, I guess, which is really fun.
I read somewhere that you had a song, Ominous 7, that didn't make it, and you feel a little bad about that. What's that about?
Oh, number 7, dear number 7. So there was a number 7 because we like had to number everything immediately, and we knew that there was a number 7, which was a love song, something. We didn't know what it was going to be yet, but like we knew that there was possibly another beat, but we weren't sure if it was ever going to happen. So we just like zoomed along, and like 2 days before the recording session, Macy, our orchestrator, texted me and was like, do we have a number 7? I was like, I'm going to guess not. And I think I called Greg and I was like, number 7's dead, right? They're like, oh, yeah. But the idea of like renumbering everything would just be such a pain, because everyone's been working off those numbers. So just poor number 7 is just dead. One day we'll have a number 7 in the show. But yeah, poor number 7. And it's funny because every time I watch the show, like on the day I was like, oh, RIP number 7. And I texted Macy and Emily like, rip. Yeah, sad.
I remember reading that beat in the script and being like, if this show ever like really becomes anything, this has to be there. And like I hope people know like what it is one day, because it's such a like just smart way of doing that. So applause to you all, but it's such a smart way of just like handling that whole moment.
When you were all creating this, writing it and putting it all together, did you think about, were you paying close attention to the Tick-Tock audience and what their hopes and dreams were for this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like very active on TikTok, and that was always part of our conversation was, the hard part about it was like people's songs had to get cut. Like at the end of the day, we had to pick the songs, which like was really hard. But we were just always actively aware of that. And I think Michael and Patrick especially just did and Eleanor in the choreography of just like constantly paying homage to TikTok was just really, I think it is what really made people happy. And because it just felt like a giant inside joke. If you are on TikTok, there's just so many of those things.
Yeah, I think there's a sort of whole new world of performance rules on TikTok, So when we're talking about, how the actors approach their material, I think we as writers also approach the material through like a different kind of attention span and a different way that the performer interacts with the audience, and a different way that, the character can reference a meme essentially, and most of the internet audience hears it as a meme. So we were definitely interested in playing with that. And once Eleanor came on, maybe Eleanor should talk about her own TikTok career, but we had a sort of new fluent expert on the form in the creative conversations in a really exciting way.
Yeah, so I started TikTok at the beginning of the pandemic when I didn't have work anymore, and it was a fun way for me to create content. And when I saw like the diversity of what you can create, from dances to skits to recipes to creating musicals, like it was just so exciting. And I've been able to build a following from there, but there definitely is an understanding of the language that is how to use the platform, and understanding like get what you want to say in 15 seconds or what you want to show, because it's so quick, right? But it was fun to be able to collaborate with everyone and say like, hey, this idea would work if you use this specific filter that I think would be great for this. And I think that seamlessly weaved through the entire show.
And then all this working up towards actually recording with a 20-piece orchestra in the middle of a global pandemic. Greg, how did you do that?
The logistics were much more of a nightmare than any of us imagined. We had this incredibly short time frame, obviously, and we also had the pitfall and the benefit of 2 of those weeks were Broadway shutdown holiday, right? Everybody goes away in our sweet entertainment business for seemingly ever over the holidays. It meant 2 things. Those who were in it on this project and were down to like make this happen and see it through, most of their other commitments were not active at the time. But it also meant that, people also had to blow off like family obligations. And Daniel and the music team famously like finishing orchestrating and listening to I guess listening to mixes like on Christmas night at 3 a.m. And so it was then by the time that audio sort of got out of the studio and everybody had submitted their videos, all the actors, then we had like a 24-hour audio cycle between Berlin, LA, and New York, where there wasn't an hour of time where music wasn't being touched, because if we lost an hour, the whole thing would get delayed, because we needed to, the way that the file was getting encrypted and protected on the Today Ticks platform, we needed to turn in the final file like almost 2 full days before it was to air. And I remember, there was sort of final editing happening in LA, their nighttime, our middle of the night, morning. I remember I set an alarm because the video editors told us at 4:30 a.m. our time, the final cut was going to be up for approval in the Dropbox. So I set an alarm and I woke up to watch it, and I watched it. It was the first time I had seen anything of it. Lucy was watching in London, and whatever her time zone was, it was 4:30 for Carly and I here in the States. And we were both watching. It was the first time we were seeing anything cohesive. We had no idea what the show was going to look like at that point, besides like little screenshots of like from the video designer. And it was good. It was what we saw and what we hoped to have seen. And I wrote to Michael and Patrick, who were, the writers of this event. And I said, I can send you the final video that'll play to a couple 100,000 people this weekend, but we can't take edits. And I'm signing off on it and it's done. So do you want to watch it with the rest of the world, or do you want to watch it now? And they chose to watch it with everybody else, which has to be truly one of the craziest writer experiences ever. And deeply unfair, I will add, really unfair.
And very brave, but what choice did you have? I was going to ask each of you what the hardest moment was for you, but I mean, it's hard to imagine that there was a moment that was hard, because the entire thing was hard. You're doing this with no time in the middle of a global pandemic. So I don't know if there's a moment that was even harder than everything else that you could all speak to.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a specific moment, but it really was like, it was just the timeline in general. And like, we say like we recorded with the orchestra like 13 days after our first arrangement ever, but that's actually not true, because we had to record in separate things. The entire combo recorded at home. So the drummer actually started recording 6 days after that happened. So we were already recording while the score wasn't completed. So like those like 2 days when I was trying to finalize tempo maps for the drummer while also arranging, like those 2 days I specifically remember I was I just didn't sleep because I was like arranging all day. Oh, and I also like have other jobs like that I had to like complete, and then like doing tempo mapping and stuff all night. Like that was for me, like getting those charts ready those 2 days were like a lot. Yeah.
I mean, this is not a major tragedy, but I think it's a writer's dream to have a cast like that perform something you've made. And so I think in a traditional process, it would have been so lovely to write to those individual talents more specifically. But it was seeing Priscilla Lopez in the Tick-Tock format is a dream come true either way.
Very true.
I was going to say, just by these people talking about how difficult their job was, like made it so exceptionally easy for me and the cast. Like seriously, it could not have been, like, I've done readings of musicals during this COVID time that were like 10% as organized and like had all these materials, and like that we had a track of like Daniel sing, we had a track with Daniel not sing, we had a click track, we had all this stuff, and we had the score, we had all these different versions of everything. I had Eleanor's video of the choreography for the Kitchen Tango that was so thorough and helpful for me, I am a okay mover, like the fact that everyone was so individually good at their job and worked so hard at it made it so easy for me and all the rest of the cast. So it was just a lovely time.
Actually, Andrew just reminded me. I blacked out the day that it actually broke me, and it was I had to record the entire vocals for the entire show for the 4th time, which I forgot, and I had to do it. I had to, but because I recorded myself singing it as soon as I finished the arrangement, as soon as Macy would give me something, as soon as it was tempo mapped, and then once it was officially signed off, was the 4th time. And that day, I remember Greg and Carly called me, and Carly was like, "I'm so sorry," and it's fine, it's fine. Yeah, I totally forgot that happened. Yeah, that was the hardest moment. So hard, I forgot it happened.
Eleanor, Michael.
I to be as helpful as possible for those that I could not meet in person, like Andrew, I had to make video tutorials. And of course, when you're in a room with someone, we're spitting jokes, it's good energy. But when you're on a video, you're like, hi, so learn this, I guess, this dance, cool. And so I had to record every single person's tutorial with counts, then do it with music, then edit it, then upload it, make sure that the upload was good, then the upload wouldn't work, and then I'd have to redo it again. So that day was a little tough for me, but it also felt nice to be in the studio with the ensemble. I was able to have a Zoom rehearsal with the ensemble dancers as well. And that felt for the first time, oh yeah, I do this. I get to talk to people face to face. Yeah, trying to get all those video tutorials. I am on the internet, but I'm not very quick and efficient with uploading the video and exporting it. So that it did take a bit of some time.
Incredible.
It's so amazing hearing all the work that everyone else was doing, sort of in their own homes. It's really stunning to hear. And again, I'm sort of like Andrew, it sort of makes my hardest moment feel not that hard. But I will say, sitting down to watch the final video when I knew that 200,000 people were also watching it, Patrick and I are downtown New York. We're lucky in the live theater. Well, we were lucky in the live theater if we got 99 people, and then it's okay, 200,000. That was really intense, but and I'm also a Virgo, so I like control. But I think sort of that release it's come up a bunch in this conversation, the sort of trust and just go with it, was a big growth moment for me personally. So I'm glad.
And then Greg, massive, just that moment where you said, I'm doing this. What a huge decision, and everything that it led to. Everything was challenging. What was there a moment for you that was just what was I thinking?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of moments where we were especially as we saw the ticket sales ticking up and up and up, we thought there would be interest in seeing this, but certainly not the interest that ended up being there. And there was a lot of moments where we're actually not sure that we'll make this timeline. But it as now demonstrated by we are a small sampling of the literally 130 people that touched this project. And that's not counting agents and managers and lawyers who all got involved. And but this has been, it was such a joyful project, start to finish. And it was the project that I have gotten the most yeses from. I don't think there was one iconic cast member who signed up and then had to bow out because of a hairline fracture. And that was literally the only no we got on the entire project. And every single person was fully yes and when Andrew's downplaying the amount of time, the pressure that was on the performers to they literally signed up to do a reading, and they were sent a 35-page shot list, asked to meet with Eleanor, team music, Lucy, and then take in individual shots and draw. It was on Christmas Eve day. It was the commitment from the amount of people who just had to say yes and then plowed all the way through. And it was we were around the clock with our team at Seaview, of course, but it was the most joyful to make something that we knew was going to actually get made. which is such a joy and a privilege right now, is to not just plan and replan, but to make something that felt terminal, that felt like it was going to be one time, that it was going to, at the time, we certainly didn't anticipate the amount of dollars that would be raised, but we knew that would have a direct impact on those in our community who need the most help ever right now, in a time politically when we were still sort of, it was so tumultuous, and like federal aid was still a huge question mark, still is. It felt, just the work felt important and exciting, and terminal, which I think made it really special. And that just made it all easy for us to just, stay on course.
So, and aside from actually everything that went into creating it and all of the hard work that you all put in, you also had a relationship with the Actors Fund, and the Actors Fund got very, very involved, and definitely, I'm sure, inspired everyone deeply. But you also had art that came from Tick-Tock, I believe, that was amazing. You had to let the world know. You had to, basically put the show on sale, and on top of all of that, to get that kind of audience in such a short period of time, and on New Year's Day, not knowing for sure, 2 weeks before that you'd actually have something ready. That is quite daunting to even think about. That, I'm sure everything just perfectly fell into place. Piece of cake.
Somehow.
I'm the guy from Ratatouille now.
Yeah.
That's who I am now. And I was explaining this. We had like our company party the other night on Zoom, and I was explaining this to all the TikTok folks who wrote songs. I was like, I know you understand how big this is, but I need you to know this is also the biggest thing I've ever been a part of. It's I think I did the math, and 12 times as many people saw this than could have possibly seen me in Dear Evan Hansen. It's completely ridiculous. And that I did a car parade for a friend of mine for his birthday, and his friends from school were like, is that the guy from Ratatouille? I'm the guy from Ratatouille now. It's incredible. I would not have it any other way. It's fantastic.
As it should be. And this does change things going forward, I think, for a lot of people, and how you've really been able to democratize the creation of art, and make, art accessible to everybody, not just to be able to create it, but to be able to experience it. And I so hope that is going to have a big impact on the Broadway community and beyond. And also the, inspiring all these people out there to create and to collaborate in creation. What are your thoughts about how this is really a landmark moment in changing art going forward?
Yeah, I mean, immediately the day after, not even that evening, I was on a call with Macy and Emily discussing, okay, how can we take what we learned, reverse engineer it, and make something sustainable that can help elevate unheard voices, and try to find a model that can do this without relying on virality and IPs that we don't own. Is something really important. And I've been chatting with lots of people about this, and am very hopeful that something like that will be coming down the pipeline soon. But I think that, it was a big wake up call, that it has been months and months and months now. And a lot of Broadway producers are just sitting there waiting for theater to come back. And we found a way to create something. And I think I'm very hopeful that we will take that and be able to move forward in some way with it.
Yeah. Anybody else wanted to weigh in on that?
I just think it's such a, when Michael and I did Circle Jerk, we had all of these interviews where people were asking where theater was and what is happening with theater in this moment. And our response was always, well, theater's on TikTok. And I think there's something about the ingenuity at play there, the sort of kinetic energy, the inventiveness that's happening on TikTok, this world where you take a rag, you put it on your head, it's suddenly a wig, and people can collaborate and tell stories. There's really nothing like it. And to my knowledge, I'm not a, scholar, but I don't think that there has been in recent memory. I think if we can in any way bring that bring that same energy and spirit back into the theater, which sometimes does feel so staid, I think that would be a really great thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle on this, which is to say there are like literally countless amount of brilliant creators who are making work. And Dory, as you know better than anybody, we are, as independent producers, are usually one or a few people tops, and there's only so many readings we can get to in a day, and there's only so many submissions we could read from agents, and oftentimes that means we're all looking at the same thing, and we're all going to the same reading, and we're all getting the same script from WME, and we're all going to see the showcase at NYU Music Theater Writing. And they are extraordinary artists who are coming through that pipeline, but there are so many other people. And when we look at sort of the makeup of the writers who we met through this process, people 17-year-olds in states that we would have never traveled to, right? In different countries, it completely dismantles barriers to entry. And, the ways in which we as a producing organization were able to evaluate material was watching a 58-second video, often in the middle of the night from my bed, right? And so it just completely, there is nothing that will ever replace being in a theater. There is, this is not a substitute for theater. This is additive. This is transforms the development process. It talks about how shows could have potential revenue streams and certainly distribution channels outside of the four walls of the theater to inspire more people. If we ever had the opportunity to do Ratatouille in real life, we don't, to be clear. But if we did, we wouldn't feel scared by the fact that 350,000 people have now watched it. We, in fact, just did the world's biggest advertisement for our live production of Ratatouille, which is not happening. And so it hopefully this just inspires colleagues of ours in the producing world to just look at this. I think it's really important to note that not everything needs to be made on this compressed timeline. We did it for a lot of reasons, but I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that so many of the working models that we have in our theater industry are ideals that are built on the back of white supremacy that don't work, and that are broken. And I think it's important for us as the people who were behind this production that happened in 31 days, that it's important for us to acknowledge the harm that these processes also do cause. And that as we talk about moving forward, this form can exist in a longer period. So we're talking about more ways to make more things. And what does a 90-day period look like, right? It gives you a lot more breathing room, and it's still really quick for the development of a brand new musical. And so, we're excited to sort of track, and hopefully our company, Seaview, can be part of the evolution of what the form means. But it's also, this is as open source as it gets, right? There is literally no barrier on the creative side and on the producing side. So this should be a form that that we all get behind and we all get excited about.
So beautifully said. And I can't thank you all enough for your genius, for your inventiveness, for your bringing people together to experience art and joy and fun during this incredibly challenging time. And that, you also inspired us all and have challenged everyone to think differently. And more than anything else, you've reminded us all that everyone can cook. And I think that's such an important message for us all to be thinking about and to be inspired by you going forward. Hopefully, as Broadway and the rest of the world of live theater comes back to life, this should change us. And I'm very grateful, and I can't wait to see what you all do next. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dory.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to Greg Noble, Michael Breslin, Patrick Foley, Daniel Mertzliff, Eleanor Scott, and Andrew Barth Feldman. And a giant bravo to the entire Ratatouille musical family. Please remember to donate to the Actors Fund. The work they're doing to help those in need during this very, very challenging time is Herculean. You could donate now at actorsfund.org. And you can find more exciting Deep Dive Broadway podcasts at bpn.fm/Deep Dive Broadway. Please go to the BroadwayPodcastNetwork.com and you can check out over 100 spectacular theater-related podcasts, special events, plays, musicals, and the first ever Insider Broadway soap opera, As the Curtain Rises. But in the meantime, please, everyone, take excellent care and be safe. Thanks for joining us.